Okay, let's jump right in.
So how does that even happen? How do you go from being an immigrant, which is a few $100 in your pocket, to running a $30 billion company? And maybe more importantly for all of us, in this age of AI where everything is changing, how do you find your path forward when there's literally no map? Well, we're going to tackle these exact questions by digging into the playbook of HubSpot CEO Yamini Rangan. Her story is honestly an incredible framework for anyone trying to figure out their career right now.
So, here's what we're going to cover. We've distilled her entire journey down into 4 key principles you can literally start using today. We'll kick things off with her amazing story, and by the end, you have a solid playbook for yourself.
So first up, her journey from outsider to CEO. And let me tell you, Yamini Rangan's career was not a straight line, not even close. It was all about reinvention, a series of smart pivots, with each one building on the last.
Just look at this timeline. In the 90s, she comes to the US with almost nothing and gets a master's in computer engineering. Solid start, right? But then, bam, she graduates right into the dot-com bust. No engineering jobs, so she gets pushed into sales. And instead of just sticking with that, she spends the next decade collecting experience like a pro at places like Workday and Dropbox. Then in 2020, she joins HubSpot right before the pandemic hits. And if that wasn't enough, just a year later, the founder has an accident and she's suddenly running the company. You see, this wasn't just luck. It was all about adapting and jumping on new challenges.
All right, principle number 1, find your authentic edge. This is so important. Early in her sales career, she hit a wall. She's an introvert, super analytical, an Asian woman, and she looks around the sales floor and sees, well, the complete opposite. It was a classic, I don't fit in moment. So what do?
Her first thought was, okay, I'll just copy them. Try to be more extroverted, maybe take up golf, follow the playbook that was already working for everyone else. But it felt totally unnatural and it just wasn't working. So she made this game-changing decision. Forget their playbook, I'm going to write my own. One that's built on my strengths, being analytical and asking deep questions.
And listen, this is the whole point. As she put it, I'm so bad at what others are doing so naturally, so let me do what comes naturally for me. That decision to just be herself wasn't just a coping mechanism. It became her superpower. Instead of trying to be the loudest person in the room, she became the smartest. She was the one asking the questions nobody else thought of. And that authentic approach, that became the bedrock of her entire career.
Okay, principle number 2, become a T-zone leader. So after about 10 years of absolutely crushing it in sales, she had this really sharp insight. To keep moving up, she couldn't just climb higher on the sales ladder. No, she needed to start building bridges to other ladders.
And she has a great name for this, a T-zone leader. It's shaped just like the letter T. The vertical bar, that's your deep, deep expertise in one thing. For her, it was sales. But the horizontal bar, that's the game changer. That's your broad knowledge across all the other functions, marketing, product, finance, you name it. Because that's where the magic happens. You start connecting the dots nobody else sees. You understand how a marketing decision affects the sales team, or how a product bug impacts customer happiness.
And this right here? This is the T-Zone Leader's operating system. It's a super clear hierarchy of how to make decisions. But look at the order. What's number 1? Solve for the customer. Not your function, not the company, and definitely not yourself. Everything, and I mean everything, starts with the customer. Which brings us to principle 3, solve for the customer. This is your North Star, especially when things go crazy, and boy, did things go crazy. Fast forward to 2020, Yamini joins HubSpot in January. 2 months later, the pandemic hits, the world shuts down. And then, get this, the company's founder has a terrible accident. He calls her from his hospital bed and basically says, "You're in charge now, just run the company. Don't screw it up." No pressure, right?
So HubSpot's customers, who are mostly small businesses, are getting hammered. They're in full-on crisis mode. And Yamini's response wasn't some timid little adjustment. No way. She got her team together and said, all right, I want your craziest ideas. The stuff we'd normally say is impossible. And what they came up with was, well, pretty wild.
So imagine pitching this to your board. Cut prices by 75%? Give away expensive features for free? Let people delay payments for months? The board very reasonably asked the obvious question. How are you going to get this money back? They wanted to see the spreadsheet, the ROI.
And her answer? Absolutely stunning. She just said, I don't know. No spreadsheet, no financial model. It was just a high conviction bet that if they did the right thing by their customers when they were in trouble, it would pay off in the long run. And you know what? It absolutely did. After a few rough months, their customers not only came back, they came back in droves. HubSpot's growth just exploded.
Okay, so that's how she handled the pandemic crisis. But that brings us to today's big uncertainty, AI. And this leads to her fourth principle, which is all about hiring explorers. Because as she puts it, all the old maps, the playbooks that told us exactly what to do, they're useless now. We're navigating a world without a map.
And this means we need a totally different kind of person. Think about it. You have map readers and you have explorers. A map reader is fantastic when you have a map, when the path is clear. But what happens when you don't? You need an explorer, someone who's totally fine not knowing the answer, who loves to experiment and who can figure out the path as they go.
And look, this isn't just some abstract idea. This is happening right now. At HubSpot, a crazy 95% of the code their engineers commit now has AI assistance. 95%. That's not a small change. That's a fundamental reinvention of how work gets done. You have to be an explorer to navigate that.
So what does an explorer actually do? Yamini breaks it down into 3 key skills. First, you need a scientist's mindset. You don't wait for orders, you form a hypothesis, you run an experiment, you learn, and you repeat. Second, you have to get close to the actual work. You can't just talk about AI from 30,000 feet. You need to understand the details on the ground to see where it can actually make a difference. And third, and this brings it all back, you have to stay curious and always ask, how does this help the customer?
Okay, let's wrap this all up. We've gone through her whole journey, so now let's build your personal playbook for uncertainty. How can you take these ideas and use them right now?
So here it is, the leader's playbook all in one place. Number 1, find your authentic edge. Seriously, stop trying to be someone else. Figure out what makes you different and lean into it hard. Number 2, become a T-zone leader. Go deep in one area but go broad everywhere else so you can connect the dots. Number 3, solve for the customer. When in doubt, this is your default answer. It's your compass in any crisis. And finally, number 4, be an explorer, not a map reader. The world is changing too fast for maps. You have to embrace experimentation and find the way forward yourself.
But okay, that's all great in theory. What if right now you just feel stuck, like you're on a plateau and have no idea what to do next? Well, Yamini has one last super practical tool for exactly this situation. It's a really simple but incredibly powerful technique. You just ask yourself why 5 times. Don't just stop at the first easy answer. Dig deeper. Why am I stuck? Because I'm not learning. Okay, why aren't you learning? Because my projects are boring. Why are your projects boring? Because I haven't asked for anything different. You keep going until you get to the root cause, the one that might be a little uncomfortable to admit.
So, if you're feeling stuck, I want you to actually try this. Ask yourself why 5 times. What's the real, honest answer you're going to find? Because a lot of the time, we already know the answer deep down. The hard part isn't finding it, it's finding the courage to face it. And as Yamini's incredible story shows us, facing that truth is always the first step forward.